Denver's urban neighborhoods. He served as the director of the ICHR Center for Urban Leadership, an organization that invests in emerging leaders throughout Denver. Thanks for being here. Our second candidate is Candy Sibaka. Candy is a proud fifth-generation native of Northeast Denver. She's a proud graduate of Manuel High School, where she was valedictorian, class president, and one of the first students to be appointed to the Denver Mayor's Commission on Youth and Denver Mayor's Latino Advisory Council. A recipient of the Daniels Fund Scholarship, Candy was the first and youngest dual-degree graduate from the University of Denver Graduate School of Social Work. She is the executive director of Project Voice, a youth development and civic engagement organization that Candy founded at 18 years old. Candy, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Our third candidate is Jonathan Woodsley. Mr. Woodley moved to Colorado in 2000. He started working in the restaurant industry and progressed into management. From 2008 to 2018, he managed downtown restaurants from small, independently owned to large corporate organizations. In 2013, he joined the Colorado National Guard and deployed overseas in support of Operation Spartan Shield and Operation Inherent Resolve in the fight against terrorism. After the deployment, he pursued his master's degree in global community engagement at DU. In his spare time, he volunteers at various organizations, most notably History Colorado Museum.
Okay, so let me just say a few words about the format of the debate tonight. So we're going to give each candidate an opportunity for a brief opening statement of about 1 to 2 minutes. The debate will then have 4 parts. The first part, we've identified some important issues in Denver and in District 9. So we'll ask questions and give each candidate about 2 minutes to respond. The timing will be up to the moderators, and we want to do our best to give equal time to all the candidates, but also keep the event moving. Our second round of questions will have a shorter response time of about a minute each. And then the third section of the debate will be rapid-fire questions where we will just ask candidates whether they support or oppose certain issues or policies in the area. And then lastly, we'll give you all a chance to participate as well and take some questions for the audience. We will have brief closing statements as well for each candidate of about 1 to 2 minutes. And I just want to be mindful of keeping the dialogue respectful tonight and ask the candidates not to interrupt one another and to interact respectfully. So I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. It's clear we have some partisans or rooting interests in the crowd, but we would ask, we're really here tonight to hear from the candidates, so we would ask for silence during the debate. I guess with one exception, and that would be right now. So if you all would again welcome the candidates for Denver City Council District 9. Thank you so much. Here's saying the first question.
All right, we'll do our opening statements in alphabetical order. Councilman Brooks, can you go first?
Can you hear me? Thank you. First of all, I want to thank our moderators. Thank you, CU Denver, and all of the individuals here for coming tonight. My name is Abbas Brooks, and I have been serving in this community for the last 20 years. I've raised a family in this community on the other side of downtown in the Cole neighborhood. My wife, Debbie, my son, Makai, and my 2 girls, Kenya and Kaya. We love this community. We've been serving in this community, and we're excited this opportunity to serve in our community for the last couple of years. I want to say that I want to thank my opponents for getting in this process of running for office. It's one of the hardest things that you'll ever do is run for office. And while we're here tonight to kind of talk about our different visions of the city and what we believe this city can be and become. And I have a vision for the city to truly become an inclusive city. And I believe that we do that by 3 different ways. One, by creating housing for all, something that I've been focused on day 1, getting elected. 2, that we really think about an equitable transit system for all. one where we move people rather than cars. And I think 3, that we focus on the next generation of people in the city. And to me, that's early childhood education and those who've been left out. And I'm going to share that with you tonight. So I'm excited to talk about specifics of what that looks like, what I've done, and what my vision is for the future for the city and running for City Council District 9. And I look forward to having a conversation and look forward to hearing about my vision. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming tonight, giving us a little bit of your time. There's no greater joy than rounding out the end of this campaign trail with this group, which I imagine will be the most thoughtful, forward-thinking group of all of the debates that we've had. My name is Candy Cedevaca. I'm a social worker, a policy expert, and a community organizer. I'm a 5th-generation native of this district. You heard earlier, I'm also a first-generation high school graduate, and I have dedicated my entire career to serving people like me, people like our community. I have spent almost 2 decades of my career working in and with government to make sure that we're creating policy that lifts up the voices that are always forgotten. I have spent my career investing in this group, in the next generation of leadership. I've worked through Project Voice to train, employ, and organize young people like yourselves to insert their voices into policy. And so to be here with you tonight gives me hope that we can build the city I believe in. I believe that we can build a Denver that is more responsible, sustainable, and accountable to its people. I don't envision the inclusive city we think of when we hear that rhetoric. I envision a city where we go beyond a society that is just workers and owners. I don't want to live in that kind of city. And I believe we need to make big changes now to create something that benefits all of us and doesn't perpetuate a worker class. So that's what I hope to talk about tonight.
All right!
Jonathan Woodley?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you to the tables over there. I love seeing democracy in action. Thank you to the moderators for having us and conducting this very cordial debate. My name is Jonathan Woodley, and I am running for City Council District 9. My experiences have taken me around the world. I've seen what it's like when a community comes together. Now overseas, it's much different than how it is in the US. Here, we live in a culture and society that is very individual-minded. Now over across the seas, it's very community-oriented. And these are people that have less. But let's talk about District 9. District 9 is one of the most diverse and dynamic districts that we have here in Colorado. Right across Spear Boulevard, I will presume that 80% of this crowd right now can't afford to live there right now. It wasn't like that 10 years ago, but it's like that now. We have elected officials that are just more focused on bringing in luxury development that's driving up costs. Councilman Brooks wants to raise sales tax. This hurts. This hurts your pocketbook. This hurts your paycheck. This makes people displaced. And I'm here to fix that. What I bring is a balance to our local government. A balance that we have not seen in quite some number of years. We're talking about the same issues from 2011, 2015, 2019. And I fear if we re-elect certain officials, we're going to be talking about this still in 2023, except on a more intense level. So my name is Jonathan Woodley. I'm a student, I'm a soldier, I'm a veteran, I'm a volunteer, and I'm a business leader. I would appreciate your support and your votes. Thank you very much.
I'm going to move on to the part one of the debate. We'll have 1 to 2 minutes to respond. Our first question, to begin, we'd like to hear about your vision for the future of Denver. What do you see as the single most important issue facing District 9? And what do you believe you and the City Council can do to take action and address this issue? Candy, I'll have you go first.
I think the rising cost of living and really the shift here in Denver of our city becoming a city only for the wealthy is the biggest challenge for all age groups across this city. I think we need to be talking about what we expect from developers, not what we hope that they would do. We got rid of our inclusionary housing ordinance. There's no mandates anymore on developers to build affordable housing. We've commodified housing to the degree that we will not be able to allow the market to correct itself. The government needs to intervene, and we need to do so by making affordable development mandatory. We need to increase the linkage fee. Our linkage fee is one of, it's what did you say, Jonathan, last time? You can buy rolls of fabric cheaper than what we're charging developers for affordable housing. So I absolutely think that's what we need to be focused on for the next 5 years.
Jonathan? Yes, I can do that. We'd like to hear about your vision for the future of Denver. What do you see as the single most important issue facing District 9, and what do you believe you and the City Council can do to take action and address this issue?
My first answer to the question is my vision of Denver. My vision of Denver is to make it a more cosmopolitan, take a more cosmopolitan approach. What that means is that we can include everyone in the conversation. Now, I'm not just talking about those who can afford it. I'm not talking about one religion or one color, one race, one age. Everybody can come together with their different views, and we need to live together and work with each other. I want to bring communities together. I would love to see neighborhoods come together, close down the street, and have barbecues. I would love a Denver where you know your neighbors. Much isn't like that anymore. We're not there. Affordable housing and affordability is the #1 issue here in Denver. It's the cause, and all the other problems are just the correlation of that cause. Now, how can we build affordable housing? Well, we can curb the luxury development. We already have a high supply of apartments, and units, and houses that I personally can't afford, and many can't either. So we need to build these units. How are we going to do it? Well, we can't do it with that linkage fee. That linkage fee, I mentioned time and time again, is 66 cents to $1.55 per square foot. Now, I used the reference of fabric at Walmart, but then I did more math. A developer could opt out of building affordable housing with 1,000 packs of ramen soup. That's it. That fee wouldn't even take care of 1 month's rent. Now what I propose, and it's a little controversial right now, but it'll bring in tax revenue, is to legalize sports betting here in Denver. The tax revenue alone would bring in tens of millions of dollars to what I want to dedicate to a restricted affordable housing fund, and also use those funds to...
I'm sorry, can you wrap it up in 15 seconds?
Well, yes. The point is, I want to build affordable housing. I don't want it to come from the taxpayers. I think you've been dirty enough. We need to stop the bleeding. You need to keep the money that's in your pocket, and our local government needs to figure out how we're going to get these funds. We need to be creative in how we're doing it.
Thank you. Councilman Brooks?
Yeah, so my vision for Denver is an inclusive Denver, and this is what this looks like. It's Jonathan McMillan, who's working in our office, who in the summer of violence committed some acts and was in prison for several years. He's the first felon we ever hired on city council, and now he is doing preventative work and violence interruption in our community. That is what an inclusive Denver looks like. It allows the grassroots to connect to the grass tops and be a part of decision making that's going to change our systemic issues in this city. So that's one. Two, sorry about that. Two, the #1 issue as we knock on doors all throughout this city that everybody's talking about, 9 out of 10 folks are saying affordability. We were the first, and this is ridiculous to say, but in 2016, me and my colleague Robin Kinich were the first to put an affordable housing fund together. This linkage fee that they're talking about, It was the first time that we charged a fee of all development all over the city of Denver. So as you were frustrated at seeing cranes, know that those cranes are charged. And still, we tried to put that fee on there. We only got it passed by 9 votes, right? There are people who are against that. So as it's easy to criticize, it's much harder to get 9 votes on city council. I have a vision of saying, you know, we need to work on preservation of units. For the first time in 2016, we also put the preservation ordinance, which gives us the right of first refusal to buy, to take care of those units that are coming off of affordability. The other thing that I think is an idea that no one has talked about is making sure DPS, City of Denver, and all their land that they're using starts to be, comes together for bankable land for future affordable housing. I think that is a way for us to build more in the future. And so that's what I want to see, and those are the things that we're going to start doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start with Jonathan on this question. And in this election, voters will also consider the Right to Survive initiative, Initiative 300, that would reverse the camping ordinance, which bans tarps, sleeping bags, and tents in public spaces. Do you support this initiative, which would overturn the so-called camping ban, or what ideas do you have for addressing homelessness in Denver?
This topic is at the forefront of this election coming in May. It's a little sad to me that it's finally garnered so much attention. Our homeless community continues to increase year by year by year. And of course, it's because of affordability. It's because of displacement. I do not support the camping ban. I believe the local government categorize homeless as being just drug users, ingestion users, and vagrants, and people of mischief. But that's not what our homeless population is. However, I don't support Initiative 300 because Initiative 300 is painting all our homeless as just working people. But it's more than that. Neither measure really addresses the issue at hand. It's how do we get those working homeless people into housing? Okay, how can we rehabilitate those that are on drugs or those that have mental challenges? These are issues that the ball has been dropped. So no, I do not support 300 because there are better ways. We need to get those leaders from Initiative 300. We need to get those who support the camping ban. We need to get them at a table, and we need to find balance. And that's what my campaign is all about, balance, finding solutions, not dealing with problems as they come, but finding the root to the issue and helping people. And that's what I want to provide.
Thank you. Elvis Brooks.
So on Initiative 300, I do not support it because I don't believe it helps individuals who are dealing with homeless issues. I supported Caring for Denver because it directly puts $40 million into mental health services. What we need is more resources for our folks who are struggling. We don't need issues like 300. And so the other thing you said, 300 overturns the camping ordinance. 300 overturns the major encumbrance ordinance, which allows blockage in our right-of-way. 300 overturns park curfews. 300 overturns a number of laws that we're still doing a legal analysis of. What we need to do is housing first. We have been putting, for the last 7 years, 1,000 individuals experiencing homelessness in the permanent housing. And that is what we need to be focused on. I regret that the camping ordinance has caused this ideological divide in our city. And there's a larger conversation that we need to be having about that. And so I'm committed to find a sustainable funding source for our homeless resources in our city. And I'm committed to working with folks like Homeless Out Loud and other folks who have an ideological issue with a lot of the city leaders in the city so that we can come with issues. Everyone believes that housing first is the answer. It's a national best practice. Let's do it.
Thank you, and Kenny.
I'm the only person in this race that is supporting the 300. I services and substantial solutions for the problem. And here we are, 8 years later, talking about the same thing with the same business interests that supported the camping ban, dumping money into 300 when they could be putting those resources into the solution. So it is a no-brainer for me. I do not buy into the rhetoric that the people who are homeless, are lazy, are not doing X, Y, and Z. 60% of them are working. 10% of the students on this campus are sleeping in their cars, which is illegal under the camping ban right now. And so in order for us to really confront the issue and start talking about the solutions, we need to decriminalize homelessness. We need to stop spending scarce resources on policing and enforcing the camping ban, and I think this is the first step to getting us there. And then we need to invest the resources that are needed to address the problem.
Thank you. Hey, I appreciate the enthusiasm in the room. We do want to try and get to all of our questions and be sure we hear from the candidates on all these issues. So if we could just keep the outbursts maybe a little bit to a minimum, that'd be great. Thank you all.
Question 3, affordable housing is at a record scarcity in Denver, especially District 9, which has undergone transformative gentrification. What will you do to address this issue that adversely affects lower income families, especially minorities? Councilman Brooks?
This is sort of the same question, but I want to address gentrification. From 2000 to 2010, 80205, a major zip code that I represent, had more gentrification. It was top 10 zip codes in the nation of gentrification. And so what we saw was we were not building enough housing. In our district, we have 5,402 housing units for affordable. That's mixed in with low-income, homeless housing, moderate-income housing. Since I've been in office, we have built over 1,800 units in our district. And I think that's important. We need to start seeing that around the entire community. There are communities that are fighting affordable housing issues. This year in the city, $50 million of resources will go towards affordable housing. That's the most in Denver's history. So we are on the right trajectory. We now need to start leveraging it with the nonprofit industry, with the private sector, to make sure that we can really grow this opportunity. We also need to make sure that we are listening to folks who are actually in this housing. We're starting to hear about a lot of the leasing agencies and things like that they're not able to stay in their housing, and that's one of the reasons why we started and put together a fund in the city and county of Denver to make sure that folks do not get kicked out of their housing, and we provide legal aid and legal assistance for the city council, and the mayor has put money into that as well. So I think those are some of the things that are important.
Thank you. Candy?
The answer to this could take an entire semester, but I'll run down with the basics. Gentrification is not a natural process. This is a package of policies that reorient cities away from serving their people to actually generating wealth for wealthy and corporations. And so when we talk about how do we intervene in gentrification, how do we support and protect vulnerable areas, we have to face the fact that even though that study was commissioned back in 2012 to identify areas of vulnerability, it is 2019 and we haven't done much. So the narrative about we're doing the most, we're investing the most in our entire history, well, yeah, because we've grown the most in our entire history, but we're also taking more offline than we're putting online, so there's a net loss. So I think we need to be talking about reforming zoning code. I think we need to talk about reinstating the inclusionary housing ordinance. I think we need to increase the linkage fee. I think we need to talk about experimentation with land trusts, cooperative living, real estate federations. There are so many things that we need to be doing to protect our vulnerable communities, but the primary thing we need to do is make it not profitable to commodify housing, to build luxury units when there is not a market for that. So that means not expediting those developer projects, not letting the city run their zoning overlays, not letting projects that are adding 700 luxury units in the most vulnerable areas of town. That is what we need to stop doing, and we need to expedite the ones that listen to community, that could get community involved on the front end and build what we need and what we desire, not what's going to generate the most profit for them.
All right.
Jonathan?
I don't want to say this subject is simple, but I think we need to change the narrative and our mindset on how we approach development. I want to work with developers that want to work with us. That's the first step. I need those developers to understand that they're not going to maximize their profitability. That must be understood. We can incentivize developers so much as finding on our end how we can lower construction costs. Construction costs are a big burden on the development companies. But if we can find ways to lower those construction costs, we can start building more and more rapidly. I would also like to propose our communities that are hit the hardest to provide a neighborhood trust fund. And by this, they are able to actually buy into and develop ownership and equity in their neighborhood and have a say in the direction of their neighborhood being developed. I also like to do the same kind of program with local businesses so we can keep local businesses afloat so they don't have to go to the bank to get a loan because there is a neighborhood trust that neighbors can invest in. Now you're wondering, well, how can we raise money as a neighborhood? Right, it is an investment. But the local government can also give a portion, a grant, according to how much money that neighborhood brings in, so that there is local support there. Our Hispanics, our Latinos, are the most gentrified community here in Denver. Can you imagine Denver without our Hispanic community? That would be almost half of our culture gone. And then the next is our African American, our Black communities. They are being displaced as well. So how do we stop this? How do we stop the bleeding? Well, the simple solution is we re-elect a new mayor and we change some council seats. We do that here in 2019. From there, we need to give communities back their voice. We need to let them know that we do need your involvement. We do need you coming out, and not every 4 years just because we're having an election. This needs to be an ongoing community engagement process. It's going to require all of us, and not just your local government, but your neighbors and the community leaders.
Thank you, Jonathan. One programming note, if you do have questions for the candidates on the note cards, we can just hold those up silently and we'll have some people come around and collect those for the end of the debate. Thank you. So we have two more questions in part one, and both of these questions concern transportation. The first question is more broad, and the second question concerns I-70 expansion. So I think every single one of us in the room has an understanding of the transportation challenges that exist in Denver. The 2018 election witnessed the failure of two ballot measures proposing to provide increased transportation funding. What do you view as the most significant transportation-related issue within District 9, and do you see any viable solutions to address this issue? And Candy, we'll start with you.
Yes, my favorite one. So I-70's expansion really is what catalyzed my involvement in community issues because I live 3 blocks away from the proposed expansion. I think that those two measures at the state level failed because the broader population recognizes that if we're going to waste our money on projects like I-70's expansion, our most expensive infrastructure project in history, then we can't raise taxes and give a blank check to our decision makers who are obviously making decisions that are not in our best interest. With the I-70 expansion, for the next 35 years, Colorado, all of us, will be paying 50% of our Bridge Enterprise Fund for 2 miles of highway in Denver for a 1950 solution that will induce demand, increase pollution and congestion in our neighborhoods. There are so many other civil rights and environmental justice issues with that project, but I think the real issue in District 9 is that there's never been thoughtful planning on Denver's transportation system. not our street grid, not our mass transit system. When you look at our street grid, we don't have a connected street grid. In many of our neighborhoods, we're trapped. We can't cross over to other neighborhoods. I think we need a connected street grid. That's the first step. Our mass transit, we're relying on the state to fund the needs of an urban area. We're never going to get what we need when we're relying on a regional transportation district to do that. We need a three-tiered approach to public transportation in the city of Denver. We need to use RTP as a supplement, but not the sole source of public transit and transportation. We need to have our own Department of Transportation that we own, operate, and control here locally, and we need to partner within the private sector that has it figured out with shared lines and lift lines. But I think that we also need to understand that that too needs a real vision that's connected. In large cities that have functional transit systems, their maps look like grid paper. Neighborhoods connect to neighborhoods. In Denver, our transit map looks like a wheel with spokes. And so that is the problem. We're concentrating everything in the city, and to get anywhere in the city, you have to go downtown first. And so those are some of the problems. I could go on for a while.
We'll have one more transportation question, so you get a chance. Thanks, Candy. Jonathan.
Last Thursday, sorry, are you awake? Can you hear me now? Last Thursday I had an opportunity to go to an event. It was called the Denver Mobility Race. Now, the invite was extended to all the candidates, all the mayoral candidates and all the district candidates, but not everybody went. So I represented District 9 and we represented well. The glaring concerns were not within the 1 mile radius of downtown Denver. The biggest concerns was everything from 1 mile to about 3 miles outside the city. And these are the areas that have been left behind as far as transit and our transportation. And I'll tell you why. Because if you live 5 miles outside the city, then you have access to light rail. It's convenient. It makes sense to use these public transportation systems. It avoids traffic and everything of that sort. If you live within that mile of the city itself, it's easy to walk, bike, maybe take a scooter. But if you lived in that little area of opportunity, right, to where it's probably a better idea just to drive. I'll get there in less time, or it's more convenient. We noticed that the accessibility of the transit system just wasn't there, and the frequency of service wasn't there either. So we do have outdated routes and routes for the bus lines. If you've ever ridden the bus, you notice that, well, maybe one bus lane or bus stop will be right here, but this bus has to cross 3 or 4 lanes just to hit the next light to take left. That's not efficient. So we need to build up our efficiency in our public system. We need the frequency to go up so people aren't waiting 30 to 45 minutes to almost an hour just to use the bus. The rates also increased. It is more expensive to use public transportation in Denver than it is in the rest of the country. Why is this? Especially when it's a system that is underutilized. The most unutilized public system in America. Now, in my vision, what I would love to see, but it probably won't happen, is we go underground. We have automated transit. That's expensive. We need to raise the funds. So then we need to figure out how to do that. But that's another talk for another day.
Thank you, Jonathan. Albus.
Yeah, so you're most frustrated when you're in your car and you're congested. And individuals all over our district have been saying this. And we have a Denver Moves plan. We have a bike plan. We have a sidewalk plan. We have a transit plan. We just can't fund it. So I am proposing a sustainable funding source of a sales tax increase to fund our Denver Moves plan for the city of Denver, so that we can do this within 5 years and not 15 years. District 9 has connected more sidewalks. District 9 has built more bike lanes, and District 9 has built more transit lanes than any other place within the city. So we're headed in the right direction. The problem is we need to do a lot more. And I do believe that there's an issue, and this is one of our platforms, is making sure that there is an equitable transit system. The most inclusive transit that you've been on is on the 60th Street free ball ride. And we need to see more of that. There are many municipalities that are doing that, and we need to do that in the city of Denver. I believe we can build that. We're building out the transit system, the bus rapid transit. Thank you so much for voting for that in 2017. In our bond project, that is the most traveled transit system in our city on Colfax, and it's important that we build more. Mass transit is the future, and that's what we need in this city for folks to start thinking differently. I go to neighborhoods all over the city, and a third of the people are ditching their cars for transit and different opportunities. That's why we need to invest in it now, and the time is now for us to do it. Thank you.
I have another question specifically related to transportation and the I-70 expansion. Many residents of Globeville, Auraria, Swansea have expressed concerns about the I-70 expansion that would seriously alter their communities. First, do you support the I-70 expansion initiative? And if so, how would you plan to mitigate the downsides for residents, including increased pollution, health inequities, and resident displacement? Jonathan?
I'm one of the believers that think that the I-70 project could have been rerouted a different way. I feel that Globeville, Auraria, and Swansea has endured so much pain and so much. They really are the stepchild of Denver, and it shouldn't be that way. I feel that those neighborhoods, right, they need to be brought up, but instead, we put the I-70 project there. The local government wants to put the tiny homes there. The local government doesn't want to even give them an affordable supermarket or a place for them just to buy some accessible, cheap groceries to feed their kids a healthy meal. So I feel like the project could have been rerouted, but again, I'm not a developer. I'm a military man. I know rockets and missiles, but again, I feel it could be rerouted. I feel that we could have went another way. But again, I also feel like this was too late. This was too late of a decision to make. Okay, and it's failed government policies from the past that will continue to go on and go on. And that's basically one of the things that I dislike most about our local government is they're always too late to fix a problem. They always just want to deal with the situation and hopefully mitigate it and let it go away. But those things don't eradicate the issues. So,
Thank you. Councilman Brooks?
Yeah, this is one of the toughest issues that our city has faced. And in 2015, I got the opportunity, I was elected in District 9 and elected to represent Globeville, Swansea. Up until that point, a 10-year study for the EIS had been happening on I-70. Let's be very clear, I-70 is a federal project. I-70 is managed by CDOT. And so I-70 is a project that is happening to the city. I live 9 blocks away from I-70, so the expansion of a highway next to my 3 babies is not the best idea. But it is the idea that we're left with. So that's why we worked hard in District 9 to make sure we have the largest community benefits agreements in CDOT's history. Up to $30 million for housing, up to transformation of the Swansea School, protection of neighbors in the nearby community during construction, and things like that. So I think it's incredibly important that how do we use this situation for the benefit of the community? And those are some of the things that we've been working on. We think now is how do we deal with environmental sustainability and dealing with that. And so we need to build relationships with the state, with the federal government to make sure that there are protections in the Auraria-Swansea community, Globeville Swansea community. For that to happen, we need cooperation from Commerce City as well, with Suncor and issues like that. This is very complex issues, but the city is committed in our Department of Environmental Health to make sure that we're protecting this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Candy?
I think that response was a perfect illustration of the lack of leadership that we've experienced at every turn with this project. My family, I live in my great-grandmother's house. We lived there before I-70 came in, and we fought the first time I-70 came in. When I approach policy, my top priorities are people, planet, and historical context. All of my red flags went off when I was showing up to community meetings, watching rooms full of people protest this project. Yes, the dialogue had been going on for 13 years, but that was because people did not agree on the solutions that were being put on the table. And then at the last minute, through an intergovernmental agreement, that is the city, the state, and the Federal Highway Administration, a solution, a preferred alternative was forced on us. It was a solution pulled out of the trash, a solution that was thrown in the trash 10 years prior, and it was pulled out, and we were told that that was the solution that we were going to get. That was the solution our city was going to get behind. The city had a very strong role to play in that because they owned 46th Avenue under that bridge. Because they are the ones who commissioned the study to analyze how much housing we would be losing, and they knew at that time that we were losing, I think it was roughly $14 million of housing that we would lose directly through eminent domain, and they settled and agreed to accept $2 million in exchange for that. On top of that, we took on the burden of paying for the $380 million worth of stormwater protection for that state and federal project. So there's nobody in this current administration that can deny the city's role in this project. In fact, we had to sue the federal government, the EPA, the city, and the state, and even in those judges' decisions, we were told that it was a thinly veiled subterfuge, that the city was directly connected to what was happening, that the city's drainage projects throughout our district for Platte to Park Hill and City Park Golf Course and Park Hill Golf Course were all directly connected to this project that is being called a federal project. So I have been at the front leading our community through these lawsuits, demanding basic things like air monitors, health assessments, and we're still fighting to this day on the noise, on the construction, on the road closures, and our city council person will tell you that he had nothing to do with it, but check out campaign finance reports because he's taking money from everybody involved in that process, including Kiewit, including their lobbyist CRL, and including their attorneys who fought us when we were asking for some noise ordinance protections.
Thank you, Candy. So in order to ensure that we do have time for questions from the audience, we're going to shorten part 2 a little bit. But we've got a couple questions here where we'll ask the candidates to shorten their answers just a little bit, but I really appreciate how great you all have been doing on timing, so thank you all for that. So whoever wins this election will represent a very diverse district, so we'd like to hear your thoughts on how you would go about representing all constituents, some of whom may have conflicting interests. And we'll start with Alice.
Yeah, so I've been representing the most diverse district in the city for the last 8 years. And so whether it's dealing with individuals who are in the gang community, dealing with single mothers, dealing with business leaders, dealing with developers, dealing with community leaders, most of the folks, all of those in the unions, all of those individuals, number one, support me. But number two, I've had conversations with them that are entirely different and very difficult to figure out. And so I've led successfully in making sure that folks can come together and find consensus for the good of community. And we've seen that happen. And these are some examples of what I talk about inclusive development and inclusive opportunities. We took Douglas Bruce, the same Douglas Bruce that put Tabor together. He had been killing our community with his property. We got a chance to find his properties, sell it to the community, and now we have a community benefits agreement with this development to make sure we have a mixed income community that's going to provide services to the community. And so I think when you bring people together, it's about listening to everyone and finding a common source to get something done for the community.
Thank you. Katie?
Again, let's be clear about what lifting up community means. I have a specific commitment to lifting up the voices of the marginalized, because I think that people who have resources, who have access, they're doing just fine without the government intervention. I think that we have a responsibility to lift up the bottom, and that will benefit all of us. We've proven our ability to work across groups. We've proven our ability to get things done with our lawsuits, with our community land trust, with all of the concessions and mitigations that were included after the lawsuits, uniting community across community for these issues. These elections are examples of that. But when we talk about inclusive communities, and that project specifically, the Doug Bruce property, District 9 had very active community groups trying to get that land to develop our own community land trust, to develop our own community resources. And you know who got that land? It wasn't community, it was Albus's old boss. So let's talk about what community is and who we're lifting up in these processes.
Thank you. John?
I think these two could go on that for quite a while here. They're good at fighting each other, I'll tell you that much. But the question is, how can we get everybody, and how can we listen to everyone? And I think that I'm actually the only candidate who is willing to do that. And I'll tell you, there's two reasons why. One, I'm not tied to special interest. Zero. Not one connection to a special interest group. Two, I have zero political agenda. It's easy to do that when you're an independent. Now, I'm affiliated as an independent, and that's because I'm just looking for the best solution possible to help my community. That's it. And that involves every single person, every single type of individual. That includes you, your neighbor, and your neighbor. I don't care what race, creed, ethnicity, where you came from, if you've been here for 50 years, or if you've been here a native, or, I'm sorry, 50 years, if you're a native, if you're a transplant, I'll listen to you all. I'll make myself transparent. I will come to you. You can call me at any time. And that's the kind of leader that we need. We need someone that's going to be efficient, someone that's going to represent the poor and the rich, the old and the young. So that's who I am. I'm here to bring balance back to our local government.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. What do you believe the city's role is in incentivizing economic development in District 9? How should the city best balance continued development and quality of life? Candy?
Right now is not the time in our city's history to need to incentivize development in our city. We have a history as a boom and bust town, and that is because we get those dollar signs in our eyes when we see profit to be made, and we're courting people like Amazon, and we're courting the corporations who we're going to give tax forgiveness to, and then the people end up carrying that on our backs. Right now is the time for leadership to say, okay, we're the top economy or city to live in the country according to these magazines and news reports, but now we're going to pivot. Now we're going to build something that's sustainable for all of us. And what that doesn't mean is that we're going to give all of these subsidies and incentives to people who are coming in. Now it's time to take care of the people who are here and build. So I don't think we need to incentivize development in District 9. I think we need to start talking about how do we spread the burden of growth.
All right.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Got the deal for us here. My sentiments are very similar to that. I don't feel like we need to incentivize developers. I don't feel like we need to incentivize corporations. I think we need to shift the focus back into our neighborhoods, have them build equity and ownership within their own neighborhood. As far as small business, I'm a big advocate for small businesses. I feel that neighborhood businesses are pretty much the center stone of what a community can actually be. A place that actually can bring communities together outside their homes, to make them get up from their own mobile phones on their couch or watching TV, to actually bring communities together, and that's what small businesses can do. When we incentivize corporations, what we're telling our small businesses is that, well, we really don't care about you because you have a shelf life of maybe 2 years. And I want to change all that. So I want to put our focus back on the communities, focus back on our small businesses, and it can be done. And the way we can do this is lower the cost, especially for businesses. They pay over 40% in property taxes. They can't afford to even have the units available to have their businesses. Their overhead is through the roof after they just pay their rent. And then they also have to pay their employees. So,
Councilman Brooks?
Yeah, and can you restate that, because you said economic development incentive, right?
Sure.
So I just want to be very clear. I cannot believe that we would miss this. There's a disparity done by the Office of Economic Development that shows women and minority-owned businesses are not involved in business opportunity. So black, brown, and women businesses would be my focus and is my focus. And it's one of the reasons on Welton we have over 60% ownership of black ownership on Welton. We're getting more businesses on Welton of women and minority-owned businesses, and that's where I would direct my resources for Office of Economic Development. Equity means this: that which was lost is repaid and invested in. And so the things that was lost in 5 points in the 30s and 40s, when we ridiculously decided from a racial perspective to redline it, we need to invest back in, because black companies, black families, and black organizations, they actually lost wealth. And right now, they make up less than 1% of economic opportunity in this city. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to part 3. This is the rapid fire round. Basically, we'll briefly state an issue that's affecting Denver and ask you to raise your hand if you agree, raise your hand if you disagree, or raise your hand if you don't have a position or if you're unsure. No, you don't need a mic. All right, so the first issue, in addition to the candidates on the ballot, Denver voters will also consider decriminalization of psilocybin mushrooms. Raise your hand if you would support Ordinance 301, which would decriminalize mushrooms. Raise your hand if you oppose. Never mind.
what about crack?
We'll get to questions from the audience. Thank you so much. So last year, the Castle Rock City Council overhauled its animal code, which included a repeal of its long-standing breed-specific ban on pit bull-type dogs. Denver has had a similar breed-specific ordinance in effect since 1989. Which candidates would support keeping Denver's ordinance, the so-called pit bull ban, in effect? Which candidates oppose the ordinance and would prefer an alternative? Thank you.
Question 3. Some cities are considering policy changes or regulations concerning tobacco, e-cigarettes, and vaping. Which candidates would support increasing the minimum age of the sale of tobacco products from 18 to 21? Which candidates oppose?
In 2016, Denver voters approved Initiative 300, allowing social consumption of cannabis via a licensing program for public marijuana consumption at qualified businesses. As a pilot program, the City Council voted in February to remove its sunset provision. Which candidates support these measures permitting public marijuana consumption? Okay.
The City Council recently amended rules regarding scooter use to clarify where scooters can and cannot be ridden. Which candidates support greater regulation on electric scooters such as this?
Lawmakers at different levels of government in Colorado, including Denver, have recently considered political and public health consequences of establishing supervised use sites for intravenous drug users. Which candidates would support establishing a site like that in Denver? Which candidates would oppose? Thank you.
So we're moving on to audience questions now. we've selected questions based on which issues have been the least covered. The first question, do you have a plan for improvement of walking and biking infrastructure? Candy?
Yes, I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about vision and connecting our street grid and making sure neighborhoods connect to neighborhoods. Right now, a lot of our bike lanes, like other lanes throughout the city, are lanes to nowhere. And so I think we need a comprehensive vision and an understanding of how we connect our city in a walkable, bikeable way.
Councilman Brooks?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit, but we have a Denver Roads plan that connects our entire city through bike lanes and walkability, and so I support that, but I support making sure that we actually fund the plan that we have, that the community has worked so hard to put together. So that's how we do that.
Yes, I do have a plan. The plan is a major overhaul to our sidewalks and bike lanes. And the reason why we don't have money for this project is we haven't even focused on it before 2016. There was zero money going into bike lanes and sidewalks. So now it's an issue that we're going to have to deal with today and tomorrow. In order to do that, we will need the funding. And this funding, I believe, is available. We just need to reallocate money that the city already has in its budget.
Thank you. Okay, this one's short and sweet, and we'll start with Elvis. What is your opinion on Hancock, Mayor Hancock?
Can I talk? Okay. Mayor Hancock, I think, has served in the city, well for the last 16 years, and most of the issues in this city that we've been able to accomplish in District 9. One of the reasons that we passed the first major housing fund. One of the reasons we have our park system, invested in our park system. One of the reasons we passed the largest bond to make up for the issues in our city is Mayor Hancock. And so I support Mayor Hancock.
Thank you. Candy?
I'm very disappointed in Mayor Hancock. He was one of my first bosses and someone I looked up to for a very long time. And since coming back to Denver, I have been deeply disappointed in his lack of leadership. I feel like coming from the same high school, the same community, he has forgotten who he said he was going to serve. And so, yes, very disappointed.
Thank you. And Jonathan?
When it comes to vote for a new mayor, I will vote for a new mayor. I feel like Mayor Hancock is a one-race pony. He has a vision that's just fully on economy and how he can help his partners and his special interest groups combine to make this city more less inclusive and more exclusive. So I feel like Mayor Hancock and some of the council individuals we have lost their way and forgotten where they actually came from.
Thank you. Our next question is on human trafficking. What measures will you facilitate to prevent the trafficking of peoples? What measures will you facilitate to prevent the trafficking of peoples? Jonathan?
Human trafficking is something that we haven't talked about here in the debate, but it's something I'm passionate about. Again, I've been all over the world, and this is a big, big issue. I've heard, and this could be just rumors, that even from previous administration, human trafficking in Denver, here it's actually a big market, but it's not focused on. It's swept under the rug, and it's kept from the Denver public. I'm a big advocate for law enforcement and those serving our communities, and I feel that we need to give them the proper resources and the proper allocations to continue to fight human trafficking. Human trafficking is disgusting, and it's disgusting what some of these people that are victims of it have to go through. So I think we need to build our awareness, and we need to be honest with ourselves, and that starts from the top.
That's right. Thank you. Councilman?
First of all, I want to say, whoever asked this question, thank you. It's a big issue, and it's at the height during our National Western Center. We have met with our DA's office dealing with this issue, and if you don't know, our district attorney's office in the city of Denver is a little tough because although we pay for salary of our district attorney, it's a state-run issue, so we share costs. I do believe that we need to beef up that entire agency within the district attorney's office to begin investigations of sex trafficking, especially during that week. We have over 700,000 visitors for 2 weeks, and it is at the height of Denver at that week, and we need to come down on it.
Thank you. Candy?
Yeah, I think Denver's shift to become more of a tourist attraction and a tourist city than a livable city is making us vulnerable to these large events or global attractions that make it easier for that to happen here. While there are some who would want a special unit that's specifically addressing the issue, I think that this is bigger and it requires basic training for all law enforcement, all public safety, and I think some of the general public are still in the dark about what this looks like and how to identify it when you see it happening, and even young people don't know what it looks like to be sucked into that. And so it's a broader campaign. I think we have a responsibility to use our platform to advocate for stronger protections and more meaningful solutions at the state and federal level, and I think that's what my role would be, but I would absolutely love to make sure that our local public safety agencies know what they're doing and how to identify it.
Thank you. What will you do as a city council member to address hiring issues, particularly for the homeless population? And we'll start with Candy this time. Hiring, yes. Especially the homeless.
I think we need to be more intentional about making that a priority. I've been talking a lot with people who are on this opposition of 300, and there are a lot of people in the business community on 16th Street Mall, the Downtown Denver Partnership, who are dumping money into this. Meanwhile, I've met with our friends in the Colfax bid who have recognized the issue and decided to employ those who are homeless to solve the problems in their area. I think that would have been a great solution for 16th Street Mall, but even more broadly, I think we need to be talking about housing again, because it is a challenge for most people who live on the streets to get a shower, to have a phone number, to have a mailbox, to have all of those things that we take for granted when you're interviewing, when you're looking for jobs, when someone is looking at a resume that doesn't have an address. And so it's about building the type of housing that provides those wraparound supports in a continuous, holistic way. And so it takes us right back to where we started with that housing question, but I do think that we could beef up our discrimination protections as well.
Thank you. Jonathan?
There are many employers here in Denver that will hire the homeless, but Tammy's right on some points that in these interviews, they need to have the proper clothes. That's why not-for-profits like Impact locally, they have a wonderful store that people donate their clothes, and people that need them can come in without charge, and they can get these clothes that they need, whether it's business attire or anything for that matter. So as a local government, what I would like to do is to provide some funding to these non-for-profits that are actually helping people and helping these people get these jobs. And Kenny's right, the sanitary issues, the clothing, we can help people. We just need to put the resources and build the awareness around that. There are plenty places in Denver where the homeless or those less fortunate can work, and we need to just get them to those services. And there is a personal commitment or a personal responsibility that our local government has to help these individuals.
And Elvis?
This question excites me because we got the opportunity to kick off our Denver Day Works program in the city for the first time, where we employ those who are experiencing homelessness. And I think that's a great start. But now we're investing billions into a highway, billions into National Westerns, billion into Denver International Airport. And we have a Work Now program where we are focused on formerly homeless and those with felons. And I believe that's the real opportunity. Construction opportunities for the next 10 to 15 years in this city are going to be incredible. And so developing apprenticeship opportunities so folks can walk alongside in construction deals and get paid. And then at the same time, start making more than a livable wage to be in this city is something that I support and something that I want to start codifying in deals that we do in this city. And so we have negotiated many of these contracts, working with Councilwoman Kenichi, Councilwoman Ortega, but I think there's many more opportunities that we can do in the city. I'm excited about it.
Thank you. Next question, how will you deal with congestion on 40th and Clayton, permitting growth of 700 units? Jonathan?
Actually, I think we should let the councilman answer this first.
Okay, Councilman Brooks?
Well, seeing as this is an open public, comment that we will have in 30 days, we just had this conversation last night. I'm not going to make a decision on, because it's a quasi-judicial state, and I can't make a decision on if I support it or not. But last night I made a motion to delay the conversation to make sure that the community has enough time to put together a community benefits agreement that the community agrees with the developer. And so that's something that I support. We're getting a mediator as well to make sure that this is codified and that can come before City Council on May 6th so that we can have a vote.
Jonathan?
I think that just shows that honestly I can't answer that question because it's not even
I've got a solution. So I live less than 4 houses away from this proposed project. I think that this project, this developer, is not even required to have a general development plan to add 700 units, which could potentially turn into 700 luxury units without a community benefits agreement that's formal. I think this should have been the city's opportunity to recapture the street that is in the middle of that property. So right now in Swansea, there are 3 ways you get in and 3 ways you get out. That's York and Josephine, that's considered 1, Clayton and Steele. Those are the only ways in and out of our community. Right now, that project, there is a street that goes through it that should be Thompson Court. With this rezoning, the city should take advantage of the opportunity to reclaim that through eminent domain for public use, to be able to give the neighborhood at least one more way to get in and out, especially now during the extreme amount of construction that's happening in the area. That's one solution. But I think that permitting and streamlining the construction permits that are being granted in that area have to rise to the top of priorities in the city, because what's happening there right now feels like a war zone. It feels unsafe, and it is unsafe. If something were to happen on 46 and the train is down, people cannot get out of my community. And Ryder can't get in.
Thank you. So we have 2 more questions from the audience. The first is, what measures will you facilitate to impose a living wage in Denver? And we'll start with Jonathan.
Again, I feel our local government does things a little bit too late. Now the city workers just got a $15 an hour raise. And while our local government thinks that they should be applauded for this, it's late. In fact, it's not even $15 an hour until 2021. So by 2021, affordability here in Denver with the same mayor and the same elected officials will be even more increased. So then we're going to be talking in 2021 on how we should be raising pay again to 18, to 21, to where it's never enough. So we need, again, to fix the issue, which is to increase the supply of housing. So as far as raising the minimum wage, I do think it's a local issue. The issues here in Denver are different than the issues maybe in El Paso County or in Adams County or Arapahoe. We need full control of what we can allot as far as minimum wage going up here in Denver. I think it's necessary. However, I think we need to do it sooner than later because we're already behind the curve on that.
Thank you. Candy?
Absolutely local control of minimum wage, and I think we've got to go far beyond $15. I think we should be basing it on the cost of living. And so with other things the city could do, kind of connecting back to helping those who live on the streets get jobs, I think we have to use our leverage as a city to partner more creatively. People who are working with a caseworker and are homeless, they should have a card that's similar to a student ID that gives them free access on public transit, that gives them free entrance into rec centers or showers. Rec centers can open up early for showers. We need to be more creative about what we're doing to make this city livable for those of us who will be making minimum wage, even if we increase it, because there are still things that will need to happen after local control of minimum wage increases.
And Alice?
Yeah, so right now there's a state prohibition on local control, but the bill is in front of the state right now, and we're hoping that it passes. Once it passes, it will give the city the ability to set up local control of wage. And I think one of the protections that I want to see is for small businesses which have employees less than 15 folks. And I want to say protection for tipped wage folks. I think we got to be very careful when we talk about our small businesses. The small businesses, our coffee shops, our things like that are barely making it. And while I support an increase, we do not want to hurt our small businesses. The other thing that I would say is that we as a city, a lot of us have worked hard on the minimum wage, and I'm glad we got to 15. But right now we have a fund balance of 15%, meaning it's over $400 million. And so there are some investments that we can make into our workers of more. We didn't have enough support on council to pass that, but it's something I support.
Thank you. This is our last audience question. Do you support Denver becoming a sanctuary city? Candy?
Yes.
Councilman?
Yes.
Jonathan?
We can't even take care of our own homeless. So I would love if we did a sanctuary city to where we had a program for those that are for it to be sponsors and develop an actual sponsorship program. Because if we just become and call ourselves a sanctuary city without any direction or any organization, they're just going to be on the street, increasing our homeless population. So if you bring organization and structure, then sure.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to closing statements, and we'll go in reverse alphabetical order here. So we'll give each candidate about 2 minutes, and we'll start with you, Jonathan.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. I think you showed a community commitment by being here, and that's something that honestly I would love more and more from our city and from the residents that we have. Local municipal elections do not garner the attention that some of the national media and national elections will get. So I'm very appreciative of you taking the time out to be here. Again, thank you to the moderators. A couple issues that we didn't hit on that I'd like to cover right now is one, I'm in full support of the Senate Bill 225. If you don't know what that is, it's local control on renters protection. And I am for that. I am for limiting the amount that a landlord can raise on its residents. Now, residents here in Denver, there's a lot of renters, but they're not being protected. A lot of them are being displaced. And if they live in the city, they're having to be pushed out, just like people that have homes here. They're also displaced as well. So I am for this Senate bill. Look it up. It's 225, and it's for renter protections. I'm also for putting regulations on application fees and processing fees that landlords provide. It's a scam, and most of the time it's non-refundable, even if you don't get that unit. So what I bring to the table is a balance. It's a balance that neither one of my opponents can bring. And what I mean by that is I want to include everyone. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. Everybody deserves to eat this meal that we call Denver. Denver has a booming economy. We can get everyone involved. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take community engagement, but we can get it done. Again, my name is Jonathan Woodley, veteran, student, soldier, and I would love your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you all for being here tonight, for listening, for participating. Nothing that we're building in this city matters more than building up our people. I'm not here tonight to walk a line or sit in the middle or balance my comments about what this city needs. I'm here because we need radical transformation, and you all being here is what we need us to get us there. This is not a movement that serves the people who don't show up. This is a movement that serves those of us who show up. In a city with 26% voters who show up for local elections, we are allowing a certain slice of our population to make decisions about our everyday lives that might not fit in alignment with what we want and what we believe. And so for this district in particular, we have an even lower voter turnout rate than that. We must show up, participate, and demand that we are in control of this city. We must reclaim land, labor, and resources and distribution of those resources for communities. And that is what I'm here to do, and I hope that all of you will show us what you want to see in this city. And that is through your participation, that is through voting, that is through knocking doors, that is through calling people and getting your friends and neighbors out here to vote. Because our lives are at stake. That's it. That's all there is to it. So please vote for me. Do your research, be informed voters, and do it by May 7th. Thank you.
And Elvis, thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for our moderators. It's about three things to me. It's about electing someone who's willing to listen to opposing views, who's willing to legislate. That means making sure they can get 6 other votes to pass legislation, 8 of the votes to overturn the mayor on any decision. I've done that for 2 terms as council president and for big legislation in the city. But more importantly, it's about leading. It's about leading on really, really tough issues. So here is what an inclusive Denver is all about. It's about my brother, Sherrod Kendall, who 10 years ago I got the opportunity to be with at East High School. And Sherrod made a poor decision a couple years ago and was in prison for a couple years. And I wrote a letter of support for him to the parole board, and he got a chance to get out. Sherrod is now out of jail. He's connected with his family, and he is now a part of, he has housing, and he's a part of the success of Denver. He is gainfully employed, and he has a vision for his life. See, I don't want to limit the success of Denver. I want to harness it for the Sherrods of the city. Because when the Sherrods of the city are successful, we all are successful in the city. That's an inclusive Denver. That's what I've been a part of since 2000, working on the east side. That's what I want to be a part of in the city, and that's what I hope that we can build. I want your support. Albus Brooks, District 9, vote by May 7th. Ballots get mailed April 15th, so you'll receive them by the end of the week. Thank you so much.
Our most sincere thanks to the candidates for being here. I think it was a really informative and respectful debate. Thanks so much to the audience members for being here as well. And I think the organizers have just a few concluding comments.
Yes, thank you all. We wanted to just say a couple things, a little reminder before we leave.
Hi, I'm Olivia Morales. I didn't get to participate in the opening remarks. Blythe and I were presidents of our respective student organizations. This event grew out of an idea that we had when we took the class together. We were like, why, we need to be more politically active. This needs to be a more politically active, engaged campus. So this was in the spirit of that. If you are a student here, come talk to us. We want to grow our student groups and to have more events like this. And we think that civic engagement is just a hugely important part of the college experience. So please talk to us. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the candidates so much for participating in this, and please
all.